Okay, on slide 13, we have two pictures of the same woman, and her name was Jeanne Louise Calment, and she is world famous, and she should be. I'll show you her pictures. So there she is. She is a French woman, and she is the oldest documented human and documented. So we know for sure how old she was when she died. She was 122 years. So if you talk about documented individuals, that's the oldest. So what does that tell us? That tells us maximum lifespan. You know, we monitor how old are people when they die, and it doesn't get any older than that. She is the oldest. Now, what's interesting, she was born in 1875 and she died in 1997 at 122. She smoked and drank and ate chocolate. So all these things that we say, well, chocolate, I don't want to give chocolate a bad name, but smoking and drinking, you know, these are things that we know have a negative effect on your life. But anyway, she is the oldest person alive. Now, don't confuse maximum lifespan. So if I ask you, how long do you think you're going to live? And you said 122 or even 123, I'd say, yeah, probably not. Even though that is your potential maximum lifespan, it's probably not going to happen, right? So what we talk about though is life expectancy. That's different. So life expectancy is the age to which a baby can expect to survive, or a person, anybody in a population. How old should you expect to live? You know, as long as you're not run over by a bus, right? And so life expectancy, it depends on where you are, right? We had said in Botswana it was 31.6 years. Yikes. So life expectancy is the average age within a population that one can expect to attain. And it's related to income to some degree. Now, what's interesting is the income level that affects your survival is pretty darn low. So worldwide, the income, if you make less than this, you're shortening your life. You know, you might say, well, I smoking and doing drugs or whatever. Those are shortening your life, but so is this, $4,000 a year. If you make less than $4,000 a year, you are shortening your life. That's the number that they use. And guess what? Men don't live as long as women. Women, you win the lottery, right? You're the one who's likely to live the longest. And I guess in the U.S., these I'm sure are a little bit old numbers, but the numbers are women can expect to live 85 years, men 75. Yikes. Anyway, but it depends on where you are. So the greatest, now this is another surprise for me, the greatest life expectancy in the U.S. is where? New Jersey. Yeah, Jersey. Who would have thought it? But in New Jersey, I mean, there are parts of New Jersey that are very affluent, and I think that's what they're basing it on. But in parts of New Jersey, women can expect to live to be 91. Not 85, 91. Now, in contrast to that, in the U.S., where do you think is the lowest life expectancy? South Dakota. And it's not just random people in South Dakota. It's people, Native Americans on the Indian reservations in South Dakota. They have the shortest life expectancy in the U.S. And they can, a Lakota woman, that's a Native American tribe, she can only expect to live to be 45. That's sad. Quite honestly, it's ridiculous in our country, but it's the way it is. We have some pictures. So you guys did that graveyard analysis, and it's kind of the opposite of these graphs. They were showing when people died, and yet these graphs that I have over here are what percentage of the population are alive based on those age groups, 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, that kind of thing. And so we've got the developing countries, that's Niger. And you notice they don't have many old people, but they got a heck of a lot of babies. Then we have a place like Sweden with a very even kind of population. Everybody, doesn't matter how old you are, they've got about the same percentage of people. And then you have something like the U.S. In the U.S., we had this bulge, this baby boomer bulge, and I'm part of that bulge. So after World War II, all the boys came home and they had a lot of babies. And so we had this bubble of babies, and it's called the baby boomers. And so as the baby boomers get older, there's fewer and fewer people to help out and make the money. And that's the problem that we have. Okay. All right, so I said, we got us baby boomers that are getting older and older and starting to retire, and there's fewer people working to make money in the economy. And so we have this thing on slide 16. It's the social implications of a long life. And the term we have is something called a dependency ratio. It's the number of non-working people when you get old and feeble where you can't work anymore, or have a disability where you can't work. It's anyone who's not working, or if you're a wee little child, this is the number of non-working people in a population compared to the number of people in the population who are out there making a living, working. That is the dependency ratio. And it's this whole baby boomer thing is what's, scaring people about Social Security and things like that. Because a lot of us are getting old. Not you. You're a young whippersnapper. I'm talking about myself. All right, so I said that people don't just have children. I mean, sometimes it just happens. But oftentimes, if you just even talking to your friends, some people say, "Oh, I just can't wait till I have a baby one." Right? I can't, that would be what we would call a pronatalist desire. It's the reasons. It's one of the reasons, one of the factors that influences the people's desire to have children. And maybe they just love the little tykes. That certainly is one of them. But there are other reasons for it. And we have some listed here. High infant mortality. So if you are, I know in, a place like China or whatever, they can only have a few kids, and so they worry. They say, oh, what happens if, the unthinkable occurs and they die? And so the high infant mortality rate is a reason people have extra. They say, well, that one might die. We need to have us a few more. I had said in Brazil that a lot of the population was rural, and they had a lot of kids because they needed people to help out on the farm, right? So children as a source of income. And even in cities and some, before we were regulating things like this, there were little children working in factories. So, and I'm sure there are places in the world where this is still happening. Social. We'd say socially, in some places they say, can you believe her? She just had her 5th child. Why, doesn't she know we've got high population growth, so you can have contempt for it. Or you have places where they really value having large numbers of kids. In parts of Africa, there's this male pride thing. And it's like, oh, look at me, look how virile I am. I've got seven children. It's a social reason for having kids. Now, to go back to China, they don't have any kind of social security system. So what the families, when the mom and dad gets old, they really depend on the children to take care of them. And as a result of that, because historically boys make more money than girls, there's a real preference in some countries, not to pick on anyone in particular, but in some countries for boy children over girl children. Okay, so if we're doing this social science thing, and we say who is most likely to have fewer kids, and there is a connection with education. So, and freedom for women. Women are more caring about the children than men. Surprise. No, some men are very caring, but if we say on average, how compassion for children is higher, of course, with women. It's the maternal thing. So they realize that women who are educated and who are empowered in their families to make decisions, or at least take part in decisions, these are the people, these are the circumstances where you end up having fewer kids. So that's one of the factors. I'll come back and I'll talk about the most important factor in determining the number of kids that people have. Hang on just a minute.